Welcome back to the Tate Take on YouTube. That's a little shout out to my old podcast host, friend of mine, Cole Morris. Just had to, he had the best intros every time we had a podcast. So I got to brainstorm, come up with some ideas of how to make the entrance a little, stand out, an eye catching, I guess, ear catching if you think about it. Entrance because I want to do that. I want you guys to be like, man, he's ready to go today. And I'm ready to go today. We are so close to college football games actually being played. It is Thursday, August 7th. And it's like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, we are 16 days away from a college football game. And it's actually a good college football game. I cannot wait. Iowa State, Kansas State. Probably not been more excited to watch Iowa State play football than I will be for that game just because it's the first game of the year. So very excited for that. Welcome into the Tate's Take today. I hope you guys are enjoying the YouTube channel. As always, like and subscribe to the channel. We're at 6 right now, okay? I'm not putting goals on anything, but let's do 10 by the end of the third video and just slowly build our way up. I've got a lot of good feedback. Some of you said I need to improve the lighting in here. I am figuring that out. That's a part that just gonna take a little bit of time, so give me some patience. And all in all, good feedback. And we haven't even started talking about actual college football games. We're not doing that today, but we're doing something today that I think everybody loves, especially since it's become legalized, and also just as it's kind of blown up. And that's not weed; it's college betting and sports betting in general. Today we're gonna do some, I guess, preseason betting insights. Let's just call it that. I want to give some conference sleepers I like with the odds markets, some Heisman sleepers, and also over-unders I like and I will be playing this year. So as always, got to say this, gamble responsibly, okay? I will never advise you to make these bets on your own if you can't afford to lose these bets. Always gamble responsibly. We're not affiliated with any sports book here on the Tate's Take, but I'm still going out of my way, to promote that because you should never gamble more than you can afford to lose. It's not meant to be something that is like that. So today, all these odds are coming from FanDuel. I have FanDuel up on my iPad right now. I want to start with some conference sleepers. So the term sleepers in this episode, I want to define as, teams that are outside of 5-1 odds, because I could tell you we're going to ACC. Clemson, they're the favorite at plus 110. I would tell you that's who I would bet if you tell me I had to pick a winner. I will tell you this, we're a week away from my full predictions on what the college football season is going to look like from a college football playoff standpoint, who wins conferences, that sort of thing. Today's more of, the sleepers. Who are teams that you could put a $5 bet on and return 50, 60, 70, 80 bucks if you had an extra $5 to throw around. So I want to start in the ACC. My sleeper team is SMU. They're 9-1 odds, are the fourth best odds in the ACC. This is a team that does not have to play Clemson in SMU. I think the big teams, you look at Clemson, you look at Miami, all those teams. SMU does play both. They get Louisville and Miami at home, which I think is a big deal because Rhett Lashley, Calvin Jennings, I think what SMU is doing, we saw look really good last season. I think they build on that this year. Calvin Jennings is the starter from the get-go, and I think you see that. They do play Clemson on the road, but I could see this team sneaking into the ACC championship to play Clemson. I think they'd lose to Clemson on the road. Who knows, when you get to a neutral site game, maybe Clemson isn't as good as a lot of people think. So SMU, my sleeper, I like in the ACC. Speaking of a team I talked about a couple of minutes ago, Texas Tech is a sleeper I do like in the Big 12. Here's the problem. They have flown up the odds market, okay? Texas Tech is up to 5.5-1 odds to win the Big 12. So they're not going to be my sleeper for the Big 12. A team that actually will be is a team I talked about being a team I'm shocked I'm excited to watch in a couple weeks, and that's Iowa State. Iowa State, 13-1 odds to win the Big 12. Seems kind of crazy with Matt Campbell there. I think those are some really long odds for a team like that. Rocco Beck is in his third year of being the starting quarterback. I think he's a guy that a lot of people have faith in. They do lose a lot of good pieces on offense, a lot of guys that went to the draft. So there's, why they're 13-1. They avoid Texas Tech and Utah in the Big 12, which I think is huge. And they get Arizona State at home, who's another one of the top tier teams. And then the favorites, Kansas State, they get them in Ireland. So they don't get them as a away game in Manhattan, which is not a good place to go play a college football game. So I like Iowa State, 13-1. Like I said, sleepers here. They're not the teams I'm picking to win the conference. You got to stay tuned next week for that. Big Ten. Big Ten's weird. I'm going to pull up these odds for you guys, and they're crazy. You got Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, Michigan. They're all 10-1 or better. The fifth team is USC, and they are 19-1 odds. Actually, that was when I did the show notes yesterday. They're 20-1 today, so something maybe happened that I'm not aware of. But Lincoln Riley, fifth best odds. When you look at USC, they don't play Ohio State or Penn State, the two best teams on the odds market in the Big Ten. And they get Michigan at home. They do have to go at Oregon, which is their toughest conference game. But when you're telling me you don't play Ohio State or Penn State, and then you get Michigan, who's the fourth best odds, and you get them at home, and you play Oregon on the road, I think that's a team that is worth throwing into a sleeper. So USC is my Big Ten sleeper. And then my SEC sleeper, I didn't go too far down the odds board, but they're the fourth best odds, and that's LSU. LSU is plus 600 to win the SEC, and I just like this LSU team this year. They avoid Texas and Georgia, and they get Texas A&M, Florida, and South Carolina at home. I don't know. That seems like a recipe for a team that could get to the SEC championship, with especially avoiding Texas and Georgia. Get Alabama at Alabama, so that's not the easy one, but avoiding Texas and Georgia, massive in my opinion. So those are kind of the conference teams I like to be, I guess, spoilers if you think about it. I look at it and I'm saying, hey, long shot here, especially USC being 19-1. I'm not advising you that these are the go-to teams to win these conferences, but I like to give some sleepers. It's worth throwing a couple bucks on if you want to, especially hedge a favorite, because most favorites are still plus money. There's something where you could put, say you like Ohio State to win the Big Ten. Okay, you put $25 on Ohio State, you'd win about 50. Let's say you wanted to put $3 on USC, well, you'd win 57. So good returns there at minimal wagers. So next up, Heisman. Heisman is a very hard award to predict because I don't often think it fully, captures the best player in college football. I think there's a lot of political agendas that go into making a Heisman winner. You look at last year, Travis Hunter, statistically the best player in the year was Ashton Genty, but Travis Hunter, played both sides. I think he deserved to win the Heisman. I do. But, a lot of people would have said he probably didn't. So there's going to be some reasons why I give you the three people I'm going to give you. I look at Arch Manning. He's the favorite. 7-1 odds. I just don't get it. Texas, Quinn Ewers wasn't a guy that was at the top of the Heisman end of year rankings when he played at Texas. And I just don't think Arch is going to be a guy that puts up the crazy stats to go win a Heisman. So I want to start out with a quarterback that I think can, and that's Lenore Sellers, the quarterback of South Carolina. 17-1 odds on FanDuel currently. The case for him is 3,500 total yards, 35 plus touchdowns responsible for and through the air or on the ground. And then you look at South Carolina, they go 8-4, maybe 9-3, and they sneak into potentially a playoff conversation. That's the case for Lenore Sellers. A guy like, I'm wearing the shirt, Ohio State. I'm going to be a bias here, but Julian Sayin right now is at 20-1. It looks like he will probably be the starter for Ohio State. And he's a guy that has some of the best receivers you can possibly throw to. Number one is Jeremiah Smith, but Carnell Tate's a sleeper, and Brandon Inniss as well. I think you look at Sayin, he leads Ohio State to win the Big Ten, throws for 3,500 yards, 35 touchdowns. I think that's the case for Julian Sayin at 20-1 odds. And then the last one I want to give out, big underdog, Jeremiah Love for Notre Dame. He's 40-1 odds. I think you look at him, and you almost look at a Notre Dame team that goes 11-1. You look at Jeremiah Love, he puts up, let's say, 1,800 rushing yards or all-purpose yards. You got to factor in some receiving yards there. And then he scores, let's just say, 20 touchdowns, which is over just under 2 a game. I think that's the case you got for Mr. Jeremiah Love. So over-unders I love. That's my favorite one to do. I think that's where more people are interested than, I guess, some conference sleepers. I just think over-unders, you either got one way or you got the other. That's how it is. So I have a bunch of overs I like. I got one under. It's going to be very, very controversial knowing what a lot of my people that listen to this are fans of. So Georgia over 9.5 wins. I think this is one of my favorite. The reason I say this is I just think Georgia is a pretty easy 10-2 team this year. They have what I define as losable games at Tennessee, home against Alabama, at Auburn, at Florida, and Texas. In those 5 games, I think 3-2 is pretty easy. I think they'll beat Alabama at home. I think they can beat Texas at home, and then they got to win one of the 3 against Tennessee, Auburn, and Florida. So I love Georgia over 9.5. That's the first one, probably the one I have the most confidence in. Going to the Big Ten here, Illinois over 8.5. Illinois is a sleeper team, I think, in the Big Ten. I had more confidence in USC than I did Illinois, just for the talent I think that there is there at USC and the schedule. What I think about Illinois, Luke Altmaier's there. He's been a really good quarterback in Champaign. I just think he's got a composure to him that could be really beneficial. Their over-under is 8.5 wins. I see them as losable games at Duke, Indiana, at Washington, at Wisconsin, and home against Ohio State and USC. That's 6 games that I think they can go 3-3 in. I think they lose to Ohio State, USC, and then I think they probably lose one of Duke, Indiana, Washington, and Wisconsin. So that's why I got Illinois over 8.5. My one under, Michigan under 9.5 wins. Okay, yep, get the homer talk right out the gates. Michigan was 8-5 last year, and I think they're a better team this year, but I think they'll be 9-3 at best. The reason I say that, they go at Oklahoma right off the bat. Bryce Underwood, if he's a starting quarterback, that's a hostile environment to go into, and or not. Oklahoma needs that win more than Michigan does. Brent Venables on the hot seat, and they need that win big time. I think that's a game they lose, and then they play at Nebraska and at USC, and then home against Ohio State. Yes, they have beat Ohio State 3 straight years, but just looking at paper, you have to pick Ohio State going into the year, I think. And then I look at the other 2, and I'm like, I think they lose one of those games at Nebraska and at USC. So that they only lose 2 games for them to hit that over, and I just don't see it happening. Yes, I'm a homer, I guess, when you think about it, but that's just my opinion on it. Clemson over 9.5. This is a heavily juiced line, so a lot of you might not play it. It's almost minus 200, but Clemson's going to go 10-2. You can bookmark that here. So I will save you guys a lot of work there justifying that. Clemson over 9.5. I like Florida State in the ACC over 7.5. They have losable games at home against Alabama, Miami, and then they go at Clemson, Florida, and NC State. So they can lose 4 games and still hit the over. I think they lose to Alabama. Would not surprise me if they beat Miami. It wouldn't. So I'm giving them the Miami win in this analysis, and then I'm saying that they could get swept by the other 3 at Clemson, at Florida, at NC State. I think Clemson, they're probably going to lose to, and Florida, they're probably going to lose to, and then it comes down to an NC State game to kind of be their swing game there. But I think a big bounce back this season for Florida State. I just think the year Jordan Travis, they should have been in the Heisman, all that. Then they were horrible last year. One of the worst teams, probably the worst Power 5 team. I just think they bounce back this year. I just have some confidence. They bring Gus Malzahn in there, and I think they're going to do the right things with Mike Norvell this year. And then my last over-under, Kansas State over 8.5 wins. This is the favorite of the Big 12, and kind of surprising to me that their over-under's 8.5 and not 9.5. They're losable games. Iowa State, like I mentioned, in Ireland, at Baylor, at Utah, and then against Texas Tech. They got to go 1-3 in those games or actually 0-4 in those games for that not to work. I just don't see it happening. So that is my last over-under of the, I guess, preview sports betting episode of the college football season. Obviously, I ran through those pretty quickly. You guys go do your own research. Let me know in the comments what teams you like on the over-unders or Heismans you like, or even sleepers you like that are even, I guess, higher odds than what I gave out today. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Next week, we'll be back with my predictions, all of my predictions for this college football season. And let me tell you, there are some wild ones, but also there's ones that if you bet and you think that I have what it takes to pick the champion right and the playoff right, you could win some money. So we'll have to see you next week to hear all about that on the Tate's Take. Have a great weekend.